Oscar Arnulfo Romero y Galdames, born on August 15, 1917, in El Salvador, was a Catholic Church leader who stood up for the poor and spoke out against the violence and injustice in his country, starting as an auxiliary bishop in San Salvador and eventually rising to the position of Archbishop of San Salvador. Oscar Arnulfo Romero y Galdames initially followed a more conservative path within the Catholic Church. However, his life and mission took a dramatic turn following the tragic murder of his close friend, Father Rutilio Grande, a Jesuit priest renowned for his deep commitment to advocating for the poor and challenging social injustice. Was a central figure in Archbishop Oscar Arnulfo Romero's transformation. Grande's assassination, carried out by forces aligned with the Salvadoran government amidst the violent conflict with left-wing insurgents, was a stark demonstration of the regime's brutal and repressive tactics. This tragic event, marked by its egregious violation of human rights, had a profound impact on Romero. Witnessing such a blatant act of violence and injustice against someone he held in high regard ignited within him a resolute determination to address and combat the rampant human rights abuses that were pervasive in his country. Romero, initially known for his more conservative approach, found his perspective radically altered by Grande's death. The assassination underscored the severity of the repression and violence being inflicted upon those who stood against the government's abuses. It galvanized Romero to use his platform with renewed vigor to speak out against the pervasive and systemic violations of human rights. His sermons and public statements grew increasingly vocal and impassioned, denouncing the government's brutality and advocating for the oppressed. This shift in Romero's advocacy reflected his deepened resolve to confront the injustices he had witnessed and to support the marginalized who were suffering under the regime's oppression. The impact of Grande's death on Romero's activism was both profound and transformative. It marked a turning point where his criticism of the Salvadoran government's actions became more explicit and forceful. Romero's newfound determination to address these issues head-on was driven by a sense of moral urgency and a commitment to justice that could no longer be ignored. His response to Grande's murder highlighted his dedication to addressing the root causes of oppression and injustice, aligning his mission more closely with the needs and suffering of the poor and disenfranchised. Through this evolution in his advocacy, Romero's legacy was significantly shaped by his reaction to the violence that claimed Grande's life. His intensified efforts to speak out against human rights violations and systemic repression not only cemented his role as a key figure in the struggle for justice, but also set the stage for his eventual martyrdom. The bravery and resolve he demonstrated in the face of such adversity continue to serve as a powerful example of the intersection of faith and social justice, inspiring others to stand up against injustice and fight for the rights of the oppressed. No longer able to remain passive or indifferent, Romero became increasingly outspoken in his criticism of the Salvadoran government's actions, denouncing their violent tactics and calling for an end to the suffering of the oppressed. His passionate advocacy for justice and peace placed him at odds with the regime, ultimately leading to his martyrdom. Romero's transformation from a cautious cleric to a fearless defender of human rights exemplifies his deep commitment to justice and his unwavering support for the marginalized. On March 24, 1980, while celebrating Mass at a small chapel in San Salvador, Archbishop Oscar Arnulfo Romero was tragically assassinated by a gunman. The assassination of Archbishop Oscar Arnulfo Romero on March 24, 1980, was the tragic culmination of escalating threats against him. Driven by his outspoken condemnation of the Salvadoran government's violent repression and human rights abuses, Romero's courageous criticism of the regime's brutal tactics, including its systemic violence against the country's poor and marginalized, had made him a significant target. His vocal opposition to the government's actions, combined with his advocacy for justice and peace, put him at direct odds with those in power who sought to suppress dissent and silence critics. This dangerous environment, marked by increasing hostility towards those challenging the status quo, ultimately led to the tragic event that would seal Romero's legacy. Despite the high-profile nature of Romero's assassination, The immediate aftermath saw a troubling lack of accountability. No one was officially convicted or held responsible for the murder at the time, reflecting the broader climate of impunity that characterized the Salvadoran conflict. The absence of a legal resolution left many questions unanswered and further entrenched the perception of injustice surrounding Romero's death. This failure to deliver justice for his murderers mirrored the broader systemic issues of corruption and human rights violations that Romero had bravely denounced during his life. Years after Romero's assassination, further investigations began to shed light on the true orchestrators behind the crime. Evidence emerged implicating Major Roberto D'Aubuisson, a notorious figure known for his leadership of a death squad responsible for numerous extrajudicial killings. The revelation of D'Aubuisson's involvement highlighted the extent of the government's complicity in orchestrating acts of terror and repression. This discovery not only confirmed Romero's fears about the regime's brutal methods, but also underscored the deep-seated corruption and violence that had pervaded Salvadoran politics. The uncovering of D'Aubuisson's role in Romero's assassination added a significant layer of context to the ongoing struggle for justice and accountability in El Salvador. It illustrated the high cost of speaking out against entrenched power structures and underscored the challenges faced by those advocating for human rights in repressive regimes. Romero's legacy, marked by his unwavering commitment to justice and his ultimate sacrifice, continues to serve as a powerful reminder of the need for courage and perseverance in the face of oppression. His story remains a testament to the enduring struggle for truth and justice, even when the path to accountability is fraught with obstacles and resistance. This revelation highlighted the deep-seated corruption and violence within the regime, underscoring the dangerous environment in which Romero had been operating. The investigation into his death became a significant moment in uncovering the extent of the government's involvement in orchestrating acts of terror and repression during the Salvadoran Civil War. Oscar Romero's unwavering bravery and steadfast commitment to justice gradually garnered recognition over the years. In 1997, Pope John Paul II acknowledged Romero's profound impact by honoring him with the title of Servant of God, initiating the process of his beatification. This recognition reflected the growing appreciation of Romero's sacrifice and his role as a champion of human rights and social justice. In 2012, Pope Benedict XVI took a further step by reopening the cause for Romero's beatification, reaffirming the Church's recognition of his martyrdom and virtuous life. The process of recognizing Archbishop Oscar Romero's martyrdom reached a pivotal moment on February 3, 2015, when Pope Francis officially declared him a martyr. This declaration was a significant step in the journey toward his canonization and acknowledged Romero's unwavering commitment to justice and his sacrifice for the cause of the oppressed. The recognition of his martyrdom was not only a profound tribute to his life and work, but also a reaffirmation of his role as a symbol of moral courage. It set the stage for the eventual canonization, which would further solidify his legacy within the Catholic Church and beyond. On October 14, 2018, Romero's life and legacy were officially honored when he was canonized as a saint in a historic ceremony. This canonization marked the culmination of years of recognition and tribute, enshrining Romero as a saint and affirming his role as a beacon of hope and a powerful advocate for the marginalized. The ceremony was a momentous occasion that not only celebrated his personal sacrifice, but also highlighted his significant impact on the global Church's mission. His canonization underscored the Church's commitment to standing in solidarity with those who suffer and endure injustice, reflecting the values that Romero had championed throughout his life. In addition to his canonization, the United Nations has recognized the profound impact of Romero's legacy by designating March 24 as a day to honor victims of human rights violations. This day serves as a poignant reminder of Romero's sacrifice and his enduring fight against oppression and injustice. The designation of this day highlights the ongoing struggle for human rights and reflects the global acknowledgement of Romero's contribution to advocating for the marginalized and challenging systemic abuses. Romero's canonization and the recognition of March 24 as a day of remembrance Romero's story exemplifies the profound intersection of faith and activism, demonstrating how one individual's courage and moral clarity can profoundly influence the broader struggle for human dignity and social justice.